Hi and welcome to GG. It's Royal Ascot week and hopefully it'll be a good few days for the internationals because we have 16 of them lining up as it stands, and they start pretty strong on Tuesday in the Coventry Stakes. Wesley Ward wasn't quite sure where to run Fandom but has gone for this race with a colt who won last time over five and a half furlongs at Keeneland on firm ground. It was a pretty good win. But this time out, it's going to be an awful lot tougher, especially from a draw in 15. Such a hot Coventry. I think he's probably one to overlook. The King's Stand Stakes is fascinating largely because of these international runners. I don't think we're going to see a performance like we did 12 months ago with Nature Strip, but we do have very strong Aussie representation. Coolangatta probably has the best form in here. She won the Lightning Stakes at Flemington back in February. She represents the top team really in Australia at the moment of Kira Mayer and David Eustace, and she, as far as we know, comes here in very good form. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about is that after she had her pre-flight gallop at Flemington, they weren't quite sure if they were going to proceed. There was a little bit of concern from connections that they weren't entirely happy, but obviously she's shown them the right signs since then. She is here and she's certainly very, very interesting. Though she does have a low draw in 2, which perhaps isn't the best place to be. The other Aussie in there is Cannonball, who's possibly improved since joining Peter and Paul Snowden. I saw him the other day. He looks absolutely fantastic. He was third in the Group 1 Galaxy last time at Rosehill. He's a horse who stays further than this. That could well play to his strengths. Although he doesn't have that rock-solid group form of some of the previous Aussie winners of this, he's certainly one who shouldn't be dismissed. Back to Wesley Ward, he's got Love Reigns in here. She was second in the Queen Mary at Ascot back in 2021, had a few issues throughout 2022, but looked as though she was really back to her best when fourth in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint in September, and she won in November, and she won well at Keeneland last time out. I think she's going to be quite good enough in this race, though. If there is going to be an international winner, I think it will be Coolangatta. On to Wednesday, and the Queen Mary looks an interesting race. A few Americans lining up in here, including Crimson Advocate for trainer George Weaver, and she was a good winner at Gulfstream last time out by 3.5 lengths. She made all on that occasion, beating one of Wesley Ward's, who interestingly hasn't made the trip. But Wesley does run Bunchen here, who was second over 4.5 furlongs at Keeneland back in April. And then we've got a very interesting runner for trainer Tom Morley, who's British but has done really well, including at the top level since moving to train in New York. He has Name here, who won by 2.5 lengths at Belmont last time out. That's reasonable form, but again, I do think this is probably going to be tough for the Americans. The Queen Mary is a pretty hot race. One of the horses I'm most looking forward to seeing this week lines up with the most valuable race of the week, which is the Prince of Wales' Stakes. Such a strong contest this year. Fascinating, therefore, that Kenny McPeak has got Classic Causeway in there. The horse is a Grade 1 winner. He beat Nation's Pride over at Belmont last summer. I think his only chance of winning this realistically is if they gift him the lead, which I don't think will happen, with Luxembourg and Bolshoi Ballet in there, both for Aidan O'Brien. But if it does happen, maybe he can hang on and pick something up. He's certainly a nice colt, and I think 40-1 is probably a bit too dismissive of his chances. If there is going to be American winner this week, it surely comes on Thursday, and Wesley Ward's American Rascal in the Norfolk Stakes. This has been a talking horse in before he graced the track because he's a son of Curlin and the great Lady Aurelia. He justified the hype with a 10.5 length win on debut at Keeneland over 4.5 furlongs back in April. Wesley talked a lot about how this is a very sound horse. His horse he's very excited about. I think if there is going to be a win for that barn this week, it will probably come from American Rascal. Up against him, the other runner for George Weaver, No Name Mets, won by 3.5 lengths at Gulfstream. Could be anything at this stage, but the market isn't too keen on him. I think American Rascal will perhaps be one of the international best shots of the week. Moving on to Saturday, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Artorius, probably one of his last races. He lines up in what used to be called the Platinum Jubilee, now is the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee. Looking forward to this. The horse was unlucky last year, and they believe he's even better this year. He apparently loves travelling, really thrives training on his own here in England, and I think he could well win this. I think he's certainly the one to beat, but we shouldn't be too dismissive. The other internationals in here, it's been a while since Hong Kong won at Royal Ascot, but Wellington is trained by Richard Gibson, who really knows what he's doing with international raiders. This horse has been beaten by Lucky Swainess on his last 4 starts, but he did win the big Hong Kong sprint back in December. He's very late arriving to the UK. They're pretty much running straight off the plane. He only arrived on Sundays. Quick enough turnaround. But if everything's gone smoothly with his travel, he's a good enough horse to have a say in that big sprint on Saturday. Likewise, Big Invasion, who's had a very unusual prep, particularly for an American horse. He ran on the undercard of the Belmont at Belmont, obviously in New York, just on the 10th of June, finished a good second behind Caravel in the Jaipur. Assuming this has been the plan all along, I think he's got a big chance of running a nice race here for the Clermont team. They're, again, very good and very sort of calculated with what they do. I think this one has perhaps been a little bit ignored. He does bring with him some strong American self-sprinting form, and that is a division which is improving all the time. But if you want a summary of the international chances for the week, probably the best one of them is American Rascal. Second best, Artorias.